My girlfriend laughed after I proposed. 3 days later, she was screaming at my door. The proposal that changed everything. She laughed the moment I proposed, and 3 days later, she was screaming at my door. I thought it was over, that love had humiliated me. But what happened next? No one could have prepared me for the truth, or the healing that would follow. You never really know someone until you ask them to spend the rest of their life with you. I found that out the hard way, on what I thought would be one of the happiest nights of my life. It all started on a Thursday night. A quiet, candlelit dinner at a little Italian restaurant Claire loved. I had reserved the corner booth, ordered the wine she always picked, and tucked the velvet ring box into my coat pocket. Every heartbeat felt like a drum roll. I had played the moment in my head 100 times. I was ready. Claire looked beautiful that night. She always did. Her hair was tied back in that casual bun she wore when she didn't try too hard, but still managed to look like she stepped out of a movie scene. She wore that olive green dress I'd once told her brought out her eyes. And she smiled. God, she smiled. And I thought, this is it. After dessert, I took a deep breath and reached into my coat. Her eyes widened. She knew. I got down on one knee, right there in the booth. Not too flashy, not too loud. Just us. Claire, I began, voice shaking. These past 3 years have been the best of my life. I want to grow old with you. Will you marry me? There was a pause. A long one. Then, Claire laughed. It wasn't a gentle laugh or one of shock. It was loud, sharp, startling. The kind of laugh that stings more than it soothes. At first I smiled, trying to join in, thinking maybe she was nervous. But she kept laughing, like I'd told the most ridiculous joke. "Oh my God," she said, through giggles. "You're serious?" My heart sank. I stayed there on one knee, suddenly aware of how ridiculous I must have looked. Slowly, I stood up. My hand closed the ring box. The table had gone quiet. She was still laughing when I sat down. I don't know what to say," she said finally, wiping her eyes. "This is... wow. I didn't see this coming." "You didn't see this coming?" I asked, my voice a little cracked. "After 3 years." She looked away, the laughter dying, replaced by a strange kind of discomfort. Can we talk about this later?" she whispered. The rest of the night was a blur. I walked her home. She gave me a quick, awkward hug before slipping inside her apartment. No kiss, no goodbye. Just a closed door and a heavier silence than I'd ever known. I didn't sleep that night. My mind replayed everything. The dinner, her expression, that laugh. I told myself she was just surprised, that she'd call in the morning, that we'd talk it out. But morning came, and there was no call. There was no text. Nothing. By noon, I texted her, "Hey, I'd really like to talk. I know last night was unexpected. Let's just clear the air." No response. I waited. I called. No answer. I left a voicemail, then another. Days passed. I even stopped by her apartment. Her mailbox was full, her curtains drawn. Her friends. Silent or evasive. Something wasn't right. Claire didn't just need space. She had vanished. I began to wonder if I'd done something horribly wrong. Had I misread everything about us? Were the late-night talks, the shared dreams, the quiet mornings in bed, were they only real for me? I kept checking my phone. I barely ate. I stopped going to work, and just when I thought things couldn't get worse, 3 days after that awful night, came a sound I'll never forget. A pounding on my front door, furious, relentless, a woman's voice yelling, nearly shrieking. Open the door. It was Claire. Her eyes were wild, her hair a mess. She looked like she hadn't slept in days, and she was screaming. Claire didn't even wait for me to speak. "You humiliated me, she shouted, stepping inside without being invited. How could you do that to me? I stood there, stunned, gripping the edge of the door as it swung shut behind her. I hadn't seen or heard from her in 3 days. No calls, no texts, nothing. And now she was here, looking like a storm had dragged her in, eyes bloodshot, breathing, heavy, furious. Claire, what are you? Humiliated you. What are you talking about? I asked, still trying to catch up. You proposed to me. Out of nowhere. You ambushed me, she snapped, pacing across the room like a caged animal. You didn't ask if I was ready. You just assumed I'd say yes. You put all that pressure on me. In public. I blinked. It wasn't a public proposal. It was just us. A quiet table in a corner. It doesn't matter. It was still a proposal. A ring. A question I wasn't prepared to answer. I could feel heat rising in my chest. Claire, we've been together for 3 years. We've talked about the future. I thought you loved me. She stopped pacing and looked at me, eyes suddenly wide, trembling. I do. But that doesn't mean I'm ready to get married. You blindsided me. I wasn't prepared. I didn't even know if I was capable of doing it again. That last part hit me hard. Again? I asked. Claire turned away, silence hanging heavy between us. Her shoulders dropped. I never told you about my past, she said finally. I should have, but I was afraid. Afraid? Of what? I stepped closer. Claire, what's going on? You disappeared for 3 days. I thought something happened. I thought you were hurt. You wouldn't answer anyone. She sat down on my couch, curled up, small and defeated. I didn't know where to go. I stayed at a friend's place. I didn't tell her everything, just enough to make her let me crash there. I turned off my phone. I couldn't handle it. I felt something shift inside me. The anger faded, replaced by confusion and concern. What are you not telling me? I asked, sitting down next to her. She was quiet for a long time. Then she spoke, barely above a whisper. I was married before. A long time ago, when I was 23. It was awful. He was controlling, manipulative. I rushed into it. I thought love meant giving in, surrendering. And when it ended, badly, I swore I'd never go through that again. I stared at her, stunned. She had never mentioned anything about a marriage. Not once in 3 years. I changed cities, changed jobs, even changed my last name. I reinvented myself. You made me feel safe again. But when you proposed, I saw everything I ran from flash in front of me. The commitment, the loss of control, the pain. The room was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the quiet beating of 2 uncertain hearts. I laughed because I panicked, she continued, and then I left because I didn't know how to face you after. That. I didn't know if you'd understand. Claire's voice cracked on the last word. I did understand. Not fully, but enough to know she wasn't trying to hurt me. She was terrified. Still, the hurt was there, wrapped in the shock of her leaving, the way she'd shut me out. I couldn't just forget that. I wish you'd told me, I said softly. I know, she replied. I wanted to, but I kept thinking. If I just waited long enough, maybe I'd start believing I was ready. Maybe I'd stop being scared. I leaned back, closing my eyes. This wasn't the conversation I imagined after proposing. It wasn't the life I thought we were building. Claire reached out, gently took my hand. Her fingers were cold. I'm sorry, she said, and for the first time in days we both sat in silence. Not angry, not yelling, just sitting with the weight of everything that had just come unraveled. The air between us was thick with everything unspoken. After the emotional storm that had just torn through my living room, Claire and I sat in stillness, staring at the floor like it held answers. She had just told me she was married before, that she had run from a past too painful to face, and that my proposal, My simple, honest question had triggered every fear she thought she'd buried. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to hold her, tell her it was all okay, that we could still move forward. But the other part, the bruised, confused, betrayed part, just wanted space. To breathe. To process. "Do you want me to leave?" Claire asked, breaking the silence. I looked up. Her voice was small, like she was already preparing for rejection. "No," I said, almost instinctively. "But I don't know what this is anymore, Claire. I thought we were building a life together. Turns out I didn't even know half your story." She winced. "That's fair. I should have told you, but I was afraid you'd see me differently." I stood and walked toward the kitchen, needing to move. "You should have trusted me enough to give me the chance to decide for myself." She nodded. "You're right." After a long pause, she asked, "Can I stay here tonight? I don't want to go back to that friend's place. I don't want to be alone." I hesitated, then nodded. "You can take the bed. I'll take the couch." That night, I lay staring at the ceiling. I didn't cry. I didn't get angry. I just kept replaying everything. The dinner, the laugh, the silence, the screaming at my door. I realized how fragile everything we'd built had been, balanced on assumptions and untold stories. In the morning, Claire was gone. This time, though, she left a note. "Thank you for listening. I'll give you space now. Please don't hate me." I didn't hate her, but I didn't know how to love her anymore either. Not when I couldn't even tell where the real her began and the version I'd created in my head ended. Over the next few days, I tried to return to my normal routine. I went back to work, smiled when people asked how I was, told them Claire was traveling. I couldn't explain it to anyone, not yet. I didn't understand it myself. Then, on the third night, I got a message. It was from Claire's friend, Rachel, someone I barely knew. All it said was, "She's not okay. You should talk to her. She's spiraling." My chest tightened. I debated calling, but something told me not to. Not yet. Instead, I drove to the park where Claire and I used to walk on lazy Sunday mornings. It was cold out. The wind had a bite. But I sat there for over an hour just thinking. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. Fast. Frantic. Then a voice. "Hey!" I turned. It was Claire. Running. Breathless. Her hair uncombed, cheeks red from the cold or crying or both. "Claire!" She stopped a few feet away, eyes darting, breathing hard. "I didn't know where else to go," she said. "I thought, maybe you'd come here." I stood up slowly. "What's going on?" "I've been a mess," she said, voice shaking. I went back to therapy. I started thinking about why I ran, why I laughed, and why I keep sabotaging things that are good. I didn't say anything. I just watched her unravel in front of me, vulnerable and raw. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she went on. I need you to know I never meant to hurt you. I just didn't know how to let you love me." A long silence followed. Then I said, "And now?" She smiled faintly. "Now I'm trying to figure out how to love myself first, but I don't want to lose you in the process." For the first time since the proposal, I saw something real in her eyes. Not fear, not guilt. Hope. Claire and I stood in the cold, both, wrapped in the weight of what could have been and what might still be. Her voice was quieter now, more steady. "I know I have a lot of work to do. I don't want to jump back into this just because I'm scared to be alone. That's what I did last time. That's how I ended up married to a man who controlled everything I did. This time, I need to rebuild myself first." Her honesty shook me. It was the first time she truly laid herself bare. No laughter to deflect, no disappearing act, no screaming at my door. Just truth. Raw, uncomfortable, and necessary. I crossed my arms, mostly to fight off the chill in the air. "So, what are you saying? That we Pause? That we break up? She shook her head slowly. Not break up, but maybe step back. No labels, no pressure. I need to learn how to be okay on my own. Because if I can't love myself, how can I love you right? I took a deep breath and looked at her. Really looked at her. Her eyes were tired, yes, but also clearer than I'd seen in a long time. She wasn't running this time. She was standing still, owning her pain, her fear, her past. And part of me hated how much I still loved her. Okay, I said after a long moment. We stepped back, tears welled in her eyes. Thank you. The weeks that followed were strange. We didn't talk every day like before. No good morning texts. No late-night calls, but every Sunday, without fail, we'd meet at that same park bench. Just sit, talk, sometimes for an hour, sometimes 10 minutes. No pressure, just presence. Claire threw herself into therapy. She journaled, started painting again, something she'd stopped doing after college. She even joined a support group for women recovering from emotionally abusive relationships. And I went to therapy too. Not because Claire asked me to, but because I realized I had wounds of my own. I needed to understand why I'd ignored the warning signs, why I rushed in, why I clung so tightly to an ideal of love that didn't include making space for imperfection. During those Sundays, we talked about everything. Our childhoods, our fears, our dreams, the kind of conversations we should have had during the 3 years we were together but somehow never found time for. One day, she brought a sketchbook and handed it to me. "These are for you," she said. Inside were drawings of me, of us, of the proposal, of the fight, of the park bench where we sat week after week, and on the last page, a drawing of me holding the ring box. But this time, she was kneeling too, beside me. "It's not a yes," she said. "Not yet, but it's not a no anymore either." I smiled, tears pricking at the corners of my eyes. "It's something," she nodded. "It's hope." That evening, I went home and opened the drawer where I'd hidden the ring after that. Disastrous night. I didn't take it out. I didn't look at it too long. I just let it sit there. Not as a promise, but as a possibility. We weren't back together. Not officially. But we were building something. Slowly, carefully, with honesty this time, with patience, and respect for each other's scars. It wasn't the story I thought I'd be living when I got down on one knee that night at the restaurant. But maybe it was the one I needed. Sometimes love isn't about grand gestures or perfect timing. Sometimes it's about learning how to sit in the quiet, how to wait, how to rebuild, and above all, how to forgive, not just the person in front of you, but yourself. By month 2 of our new arrangement, I'd stopped checking my phone every 5 minutes. The silence that used to suffocate me after Claire left started, feeling less like emptiness and more like space. Space to think. Space to breathe. Space to become someone better than the man who once believed love meant fixing everything instantly. Claire and I still met on Sundays, and little by little, things grew lighter between us. Our conversations weren't loaded with expectations or tension anymore. We talked like 2 people who were rediscovering one another after a long storm, and every now and then there were laughs. Not the sharp, shocking kind that broke me once, but the real kind, warm and healing. She told me more about her past, how her ex-husband had slowly erased pieces of her until she couldn't recognize the woman staring back at her in the mirror, how she stayed too long out of fear, how she finally left when he crossed a line she couldn't forgive. And even after I left, she said once as we sat on the park bench wrapped in coats and scarves, I carried him around in my mind for years. Every decision I made, I asked, would he have approved? Without even realizing it, I listened. I didn't interrupt. I just let her speak. That same day, she asked me something unexpected. "What was your childhood like?" I blinked, caught off guard. Why?" "Because you always talk about the future, about being steady, about building something solid. But you never talk about where that comes from." I smiled half-heartedly. "I guess. I never had. Solid growing up. My dad left when I was 10. My mom worked 3 jobs just to keep the lights on. I promised myself I'd build something different, something that lasted." Claire nodded, thoughtful. "Maybe that's why you wanted it all, so badly." It was the first time I realized our broken pieces weren't just damaging each other, they were mirroring one another. She feared losing herself in love. I feared never having love at all. And maybe, deep down, we had both been trying to make the other person fill the gaps we hadn't filled ourselves. One Sunday, as winter began to melt into spring, Claire didn't bring her sketchbook. She brought coffee. "Come walk with me," she said. We wandered the park, talking about nothing. Squirrels, city traffic, a weird dream she'd had. It felt normal, comforting. "I think I'm getting better," she said, out of nowhere. "I still have bad days, still moments when I freeze up or second-guess everything, but I'm learning how to stay when I want to run. That's new for me." I glanced at her, letting the words settle. "I've been working on not trying to fix everything, on just letting people feel what they feel." She smiled, brushing a stray hair behind her ear. "You're doing better, too." We walked, in silence for a while, not the awkward kind, just quiet, peaceful, like we both knew there was more to say, but we didn't need to rush it. When we got back to our usual bench, she turned to me. "I'm not ready for marriage," she said softly. "Not yet, but I'm ready to be in this, really in this, with honesty, with therapy, with patience. I don't want to run anymore." And then she reached into her pocket. "Not a ring, a key. To my apartment," she said. "No pressure. You don't have to take it. But maybe next time, don't wait for me to scream at your door." I laughed, genuinely. "I'll keep that in mind." I took the key, not as a promise, not as a milestone, but as an invitation to trust, to rebuild, to love, not from desperation or fear, but from strength. We weren't the couple that got engaged over candlelight and clinking glasses. We were something messier, something more real, and maybe that was better. Life doesn't follow a neat arc, no matter how many movies promise it does. Claire and I had found a rhythm, a new kind of closeness, not like the first time, when we pretended everything was fine and rushed toward forever like a finish line. This was slower, more fragile, but somehow stronger. Then came the setback. It was a Wednesday night. I had a key to Claire's apartment. Now, but I never used it without texting first. That night, I figured I'd surprise her, bring takeout, maybe watch one of those old black-and-white films she loved. I'd knocked, texted. No answer. So I let myself in. And I found her in the dark, curled up on the floor of her living room, trembling. She didn't see me at first. "Claire," she flinched at the sound of my voice. I dropped the food and knelt beside her. Hey, what's going on?" She shook her head, voice thin and distant. I thought I was okay, but I got a call today, from a number I didn't recognize. It was him, my ex." I froze. "He called you?" She nodded. "He didn't say much, just enough to make my chest tighten again. Just enough to remind me that even after all this time he still lives in a corner of my head. I don't want him there, but he's still there." I sat beside her, not touching her, not trying to fix it, just being still, being present. Eventually, she calmed enough to speak in full sentences. I didn't answer when he asked if it was me. I just hung up, but I've been shaking ever since. I reached over, gently took her hand. "He doesn't own you anymore." "I know," she whispered, "but trauma doesn't care about logic." She didn't want to talk much more that night, and I didn't press her. I stayed on the couch. We barely slept. But in the morning, she looked at me with clear eyes. "I'm not giving up," she said, "but I need to reground myself, and I need you to be patient. Again." "Always," I said. That day reminded me that healing isn't linear. There are dips and spirals, but they don't mean failure. They just mean the work is real. After that night, we started attending a couples therapy group. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't even particularly warm. But it was honest. One of the things we learned there changed everything for me. "Most people think love is about completing each other," the therapist said. "But that's dangerous, because when one of you breaks down, the other doesn't know who to be." Claire and I stared at each other in that moment, like something had clicked. We had been trying, in our own ways, to fix each other, to complete each other without learning how to stand fully on our own. So we kept working. She kept painting. I started journaling. We made boundaries clearer. Time alone, days apart when needed, scheduled check-ins rather than assuming we knew what the other felt. One Sunday afternoon, she surprised me by suggesting a day trip to the old bookstore downtown. We used to go there back in our first year together before things got heavy. Walking through those aisles, flipping through worn pages, laughing over ridiculous cover art, it felt like time travel, but this time we weren't pretending. We weren't playing perfect. We were just together, imperfectly. At checkout, she bought a small poetry book. Later, she read from it aloud as we sat on her balcony. One line stuck with me. "The strongest homes are the ones rebuilt by their own survivors." Claire looked up and said, "That's us, isn't it?" "Yeah," I said. "It is. We were building something, not from scratch, but from the broken pieces we'd chosen to hold on to and mend together. It didn't look like a fairy tale. But maybe it was something better. Real. Resilient. Ours." I hadn't looked at the ring in months. It was still in the drawer, tucked beneath an old stack of receipts and faded photographs. Sometimes I'd pass by it on my way to find my charger or a pen, and the thought would flicker across my mind. Not yet. I never touched it. I never opened the box. But one Saturday morning, something shifted. Claire and I had just come back from the farmer's market. She was laughing about a woman who had scolded a dog for sniffing zucchinis, and her eyes sparkled like they did when we first met, not in that fairy tale way I used to chase, but in a steady, lived-in kind of joy. We put the groceries away, brewed coffee, and sat at her tiny kitchen table, the one with the chipped leg we kept saying we'd fix but never did. I looked at her across the table. No makeup. Hair still a little wild from sleep. Wrapped in one of my old hoodies, and I felt it again. That quiet certainty I'd once mistaken for urgency. Only now, it wasn't desperate. It was calm. I went home that afternoon and opened the drawer. The ring was still there, untouched, exactly where I'd left it the night she laughed in my face. But this time, it didn't hurt to look at it. That night, I invited Claire over. No agenda. Just dinner and a movie. We cooked together. Her famous pasta, my mediocre garlic bread, and while the pasta simmered, I turned off the stove and said, "I have something to show you." She looked up, curious. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the ring box. She froze. "I'm not proposing," I said quickly. "Not yet. I'm not asking a question tonight. I'm sharing something with you, something I held on to." I opened the box slowly, revealing the ring. The diamond wasn't huge. The band wasn't extravagant, but it was ours. It was chosen with intention, not for show. Her hand went to her chest. "You still kept it." "I never planned to throw it away," I said, but for a while I didn't know if I'd ever be able to look at it without remembering the worst day of our relationship. She stepped closer. "And now?" she asked. "Now." I see it as a symbol, not of a question, but of everything we've survived. It reminds me of how far we've come, not just as a couple, but as people. She smiled. Tears welled up in her eyes, but they didn't spill. She reached out and gently touched the ring with her fingertips. "You're not the man who proposed to me that night," she said. "I know," I replied. "And you're not the woman who laughed." Silence fell between us, but it wasn't empty. It was full of memory, of hurt, of healing, of growth, of everything unsaid that didn't need words. Claire reached for the box, closed it gently, and handed it back. "I want you to keep it," she whispered. "Not because I'm saying no, but because I want to say yes one day. When I'm ready. When we're ready. And when we both know it's not about fixing something broken, but celebrating something rebuilt." I took the box and nodded. That night we watched the movie, but neither of us really paid attention. We sat close, legs tangled, her head resting on my chest. Every now and then she'd look up at me with that same spark, a new kind of spark. Not the fire that burns everything down, but the one you build a home around. We didn't talk about timelines. We didn't make promises we weren't sure we could keep, but we knew. We knew that what we had now was stronger than any rushed engagement or perfect moment. We had scars, yes, but they weren't ugly. They were maps of where we'd been, and guides for where we were going. And one day, whether it was months or years from now, that ring might find its way back into her hand. But this time, not because I needed her to say yes, because she wanted to.